pretty comfortable having watched the greatest media redemption arc of all time. It's V'ger Please, which will, for a few episodes here, not be a heinous trip or hateful voyage, but a pleasant journey at top speeds across subspace. My name is Joseph.
I'm your co-host, Peter.
Can you believe that we're about to start talking about a season of Star Trek Picard, Peter?
No, and I mean, the number one reason to go back to this everybody should have just got a good 15 seconds worth, and that would be a legitimate use to reuse our Inner Light cover, thoughtfully provided by Ian and Sarah.
Truly their best work, and that's at even accounting for the banger they did for our Enterprise episodes.
Fucking squandered on season 1 of Picard, which we reviewed. We stopped reviewing Voyager, 2 years ago?
Yeah, if you're joining this podcast already in progress, and you're like, what the fuck is this inside baseball shit these two jabronis are talking about? Let me recap. Peter and I, from the very beginning of doing this show back in 2018, got pretty hype about the idea of reviewing Picard when it was announced, I think at the beginning of 2019. Okay, so we haven't been doing the show that long when the idea of Picard came into being. And we stopped reviewing Voyager near the end of season 4, I want to say. Right before Demon, because I remember Demon was our first episode back to Voyager. So that we could review Picard on a weekly basis and kind of stay current on it. We were so hyped for it. Never before have you and I been quite so mean, and in my opinion, quite so funny.
Deservedly so.
Deservedly so. Like,
True facts.
We were offended at the existence of Picard season 1 and the nosedive in quality that it took from the very start, to the point where we did not continue. We gave up halfway through the season because we were driving our own fans away with how angry we were. And also,
it wasn't fun.
It wasn't fun. We weren't enjoying it. We like to do this for fun.
Funny. I think it was funny. I think some other people call it funny. Obviously, again, we lost a lot of listeners over it. But it was not fun for us to talk about.
No.
And that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and here we are, having returned.
Jumped all the way over season 2 like a kangaroo on steroids. I was content to never come back to this fucking thing. Joe does not have children. Joe has a lot of free time. Joe is able to waste his fucking time as he sees fit with all sorts of garbage TV shows, daring to brave such paths as going back into the diarrhea wasteland of Westeros and watch fucking Game of Thrones nonsense again.
Which was good. I mean, there have been good redemption arcs this year, Peter, and I understand your recalcitrance to believe me, because I hardly believed it myself. But House of the Dragon was very good. Andor reclaimed Star Wars as a serious storytelling vehicle as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they already had Mandalorian going for them too.
But like, Andor is serious, like, political adult storytelling in the Star Wars universe. It is wild that it exists, and it's kind of crazy that it's as good as it is, because it's just not a big enough audience for what they made. And that's what kind of shocked me, and how good it was, and used practical sets. A different show maybe.
So meanwhile, this season 2 of Picard's going, and as everybody knows, season 2 was still airing and bombing.
Mm-hmm. Horrifically.
Like, it absolutely had no other option to bomb. It was so bad that they immediately started launching Strange New Worlds to try to salvage whatever viewership they had left in the Star Trek kitty, and also began actively promoting season 3 over season 2.
Yeah, while season 2 was going on, they trailered season 3. And in that trailer, all you know is all of the dudes come back. That's what they tell you.
Now, go back to us getting hype about Picard in the first place. And there's a clear announcement up front that this is not going to be Next Generation Season 8. This is not going to be the adventures of the bridge crew of the Enterprise on the Enterprise doing Enterprise things, that this was going to be a story about Picard navigating what the Federation had become. And I think at the time, you and I had both agreed that that was the correct story to tell, that there was some cool stuff they could have done. Both of us not having any notion that the stories they decided to tell could be as fucking awful as they were.
I don't think you and I ever conceived that it would be as bad as it was. It defied our expectations in the worst possible way.
It wasn't just bad, it was preposterous. Like
Yeah.
it was bad stories that were ridiculous in scope and littered with trash characters you just couldn't give a fuck about.
We called it a jabroni circus, or you did. You called it a jabroni circus, and season 2 was worse.
Thankfully, I'll never know.
You'll never know, nor should you.
So you get into season 3 now, and my arm has been twisted behind my back to a point of everybody getting down on both knees to blow this thing. Strong outpouring of requests from our own listener base to watch this, and my own genuine curiosity, because where there's smoke, there's fire, and everybody in the world can't be wrong. And if they managed to take The Mandalorian in season 3 and turn that into garbage, maybe it was Freaky Friday and we're swapping good quality content into Picard. And what Picard is going to give us, and you know, as is always the theme with our recordings, one of us, usually you, has already seen all of the product and know what happens, and then one of us is going in essentially cold. And in this case, I have only watched episodes 1 through 4 up to this point. I don't know if that was your own internal decision or if that's what most of the other media outlets are doing. I'll agree that episode 4 was a good cutoff.
Yeah, you kind of know after you watch episode 4 like that's a good cutoff. I don't think there's a secret code there, except basic understanding that that's really how they wrote it.
And what you can see in episodes 1 through 4 is all the stuff they said they weren't going to do. Lo and behold, getting the band back together on a starship, doing Star Trek things on a starship that looks like an Enterprise was the right call all along.
There is a fantastic IGN video that I will commend to everyone's attention that was in the Discord. And the title of it is, "For season 3 of Picard to succeed, Patrick Stewart had to be wrong." And it really goes into detail of how Patrick Stewart's demands to do Picard to begin with was like, no Star Trek things. I want to do
Brexit.
I want to do political stuff. I want to do all these stories. There's science fiction, but I don't want to do all the Star Trek stuff. I want to be in a uniform. I don't want to be in a starship. I don't want to do any of that. Well, it turns out that those things are what make Star Trek Star Trek. And when you don't do those things and the show is bad, you just create garbage.
Now, you could say history repeats itself. Is there any other piece of work we could have looked at where there's old big name Star Trek captains that tried to set out and do their own twist on sci-fi? And yes, it was called Tech War by Bill Shatner.
Oh God, I remember that. Yeah, it wasn't very good.
It wasn't a nuclear bonfire in your face that Picard season 1 and season 2 was, but it wasn't good, and it ultimately folded. And maybe in hindsight, you could have looked at it and said, they're here for the thing. They're watching Star Trek for the Trek Through the Stars. Maybe we should. Season 1 of Picard, I think, genuinely made me dislike Patrick Stewart as a person. If I'm like, if he's in that executive producer role, if he's calling the shots, if he has the final authority, like, maybe I've been wrong about this guy all along. Maybe he has not understood what it is he's doing. And I still stand by, our statement we harped on, which is the inmates cannot run the asylum.
Yeah. And a good actor, it does not make a good director or good producer. Makes a good actor.
Role-playing character cannot be the game master administering the game. You need to have a cutoff, and there needs to be direction. It needs to be, this is the vision. This is how you will deliver the script, and you can interpret that within a certain amount of latitude, but you cannot choose your own adventures here.
And speaking of the vision, speaking of the someone that has to provide the rails that this particular roller coaster will be on, let us talk about the production of this season and how it is that this miraculous turn of events came to be. And really, it comes down to one name that's come up for us recently in Enterprise, because we reviewed his first writing credit, and that is showrunner of season 3, one Terry Matalas. This guy's story is pretty awesome. He got his start as a very first job in Hollywood as a production assistant on Voyager. He was literally Jerry Ryan's gopher, and that will be important later. That was his job. He was Jerry Ryan's gopher. And he moved on to becoming Rick Berman's personal assistant. He got to write some episodes of Enterprise.
You're handling a lot of crocodile semen at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you get to be a made man within the Star Trek production universe based on the level of crocodile semen you are personally willing to endure. And Terry Matalas clearly endured it all. But of course, he got into this because he loved Star Trek growing up. He watched Next Gen. He's your age, Peter. And this is what he was doing in his early 20s, is he actually got into the production world of Star Trek, but he got in at the end. And Enterprise folded. Berman and everyone else was out at Paramount, and he found his way into doing like sci-fi shows. I think the biggest one he did was 12 Monkeys, which I didn't even know was a thing, that there was a 12 Monkeys television show ever. But evidently it was a quiet banger. And that also becomes important because he made a lot of professional contacts in that he brought in to doing Picard season 3 at a minimum of cost that I think made it work. But Picard's being made. Season 1's bad. Season 2 is even worse. But they have a distribution contract for 3 seasons. And so there's money on the table if they just make something, because they already have a contract to sell it. But they need to make it at the cheapest possible price because no one else is going to want it. This project has died horrifically. Nobody wants to do it. Alex Kurtzman is off trying to do Discovery.
Akiva, not even that, man. Like,
yeah, then The Man Who Fell to Earth, that movie he was doing.
Clarice, which was Silence the Lambs spinoff, but it wasn't allowed to actually feature main characters from it. That Paramount put a lot of eggs in that basket, and he bombed hard on it. So the real tragedy to the story is that I believe there was a pretty good chance Kurtzman would have been out on the curb, and Star Trek would have been free of Secret Hideout, Bad Robot, had this Matalas guy not been able to fucking pull off an 11th hour win for hack fraud Kurtzman. But I mean, to your point, Akiva Goldman went on to do Strange New Worlds behind Kurtzman's back, which I heard caused quite a rift there. The franchise was in fucking shambles.
And Matalas had wormed his way back into doing Star Trek because of who? Jerry Ryan. Right? Got your old friend working on this show. They need people to make this shit. There's not anybody who wants to. They've run through 2 showrunners already. You know, like this hasn't gone well. Who are you going to get? Well, we've got this worker who's done low budget sci-fi his whole career and also did Trek back in the day. And Jerry speaks highly of him. Let's hire him. So he co-produced season 2 and like wrote a couple scripts. And, you know, that product didn't turn out, but I'm not going to put it on him, because when the idea to do season 3 came up, the only way they were able to do it was he was doing it by himself. He had to shoot it concurrent to season 2. So as soon as they wrapped on season 2, they were immediately shooting season 3. And they just redressed existing sets. And I mean, the cheapness of the show is evident in terms of its production.
Man, I gotta disagree. Like, I was really trying to watch with a fine eye through these first 4 episodes and see, like, where's the shitty corner cutting? And I don't know where it's at.
Well, no, that's just it. He hit it because he's good at doing cheap. You know, like he doesn't. They only had the sets they had from season 2 from the Stargazer that they just redressed into the Titan. That's all they had. That's what the whole season is is on the starships. But that's the whole point. He made it produce like Star Trek. It was inexpensive. They had to use all the parts of the Buffalo they had available to them.
And that's the golden egg of Star Trek, is that it should not be a run and gun high production value cinematic experience.
Yeah.
It
Be a
should
lot of
be
talking.
close and tight cerebral drama using one of 5 pre-established sets, or the caves on planet Hell redressed to whatever the mucky planet's going to be this week.
Precisely. And so this is what he's left with. He knows how to do that. He's literally done it. And he's got a vision. And his vision is we got to give the people what they want if we want them to watch. And he managed to get everyone back from Next Gen on non-standard credits, which is shocking. They're all billed as guest stars or special guest stars. There are 3 credited main cast on this show: Patrick Stewart, Jerry Ryan, and Michelle Hurd, and that is it.
I don't know what the finances are here. I don't know what these actors were paid given the budget constraints, but let's be honest with ourselves. What do any of the original cast members have going on right now that they would not be able to try to salvage one last hurrah, so that next convention they can charge another extra $20 to get a signature on their headshot?
The economic incentives are there, and the cultural incentives are there, and
ego boosts are there.
And enough time has passed where even if the actors who got a little tired of it realized this is the best work they ever had, right? Particularly for people like Michael Dorn, who had the most at-bats being in Trek because he did half of DS9 and all of that. Like, they want to do it. Like, this is what they're known for. They know this character. They know this
Galaxy
world.
Quest, man.
Yeah.
And you go to Galaxy Quest, them hitting those convention circuits, like the realization that like maybe it wasn't that bad after all. And again, you can cut a lot of leeway to the original series cast members. They had no idea what was going to happen to them and their careers for 4 seasons, right? 3 seasons that would, you could say haunt, or you could say last the entire rest of their life. But from TNG forward, everybody knows what Star Trek is. Everybody knows what the Star Trek fan is about and where your career is going to go after it. And with precious few exceptions, this is it. So that's what they signed up for. That's what they got. And they're lucky they got this. I'm curious how, for all the big talk out of Patrick Stewart, who is a wealthy movie star at this point,
a knight,
who does not need to do this stuff. He went back in because it was a soapbox for him to stand on and preach politically. His vision bombed 2 seasons in a row. When Terry McGillis gets up to bat...
Terry McGillis?
Sorry. I keep thinking fucking Batman Beyond.
Terry Matalas.
Whatever. Patrick Stewart's still an executive producer.
Yeah.
Does some studio is there someone that comes in over Stewart and says, fuck your message, you're doing Star Trek now whether you like it or not, and twist his arm into it? Or does he finally have to eat some fucking humble pie and say, I don't want this is not good, and this is not what I want to be remembered for?
Terry Matalas talked him into it. That's the actual story. He said, you want this to go out on a high note, this is what it's got to have to be, and you're gonna have to give on everything you didn't want to do. And he talked him into it. And I think it's because Terry Matalas is a fan of Next Generation, and he literally grew up with the show. And he's like, people like me desperately want this. Help me make it for them.
Do you think Patrick Stewart really cares, though? Like, if he cared
actor,
about what
he wants people to fucking love him, are you kidding?
Sure, but I mean, like,
he
does
wants
he
to
care
hear
about what the average Star Trek neckbeard really thinks? I don't know. And you're not going to get the straight talk on this stuff for a long time. Hollywood, Paramount needed this thing to work. You're getting a song and dance. Jump forward after this is already done and over. LeVar Burton going on The View.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
selling it
wouldn't it
hard.
be something if Star Trek if the voyage continues after this with a new crew that we brought in, this next generation of cast members, and what if we called it Legacy and let's sign a petition? It's like, this isn't organic. The View is not a place where fluid conversation happens. It's a fucking marketing tool, and this is going out there, which ironically, and going back to hack fraud Antichrist Kurtzman, this thing did take off. Paramount did foolishly extend Secret Hideout's license on this. They did have to give them a certain amount of green lights, and we got some bullshit coming in for Section 31.
Yeah, they're making that movie because they have a contract already in place with a woman who now has an Oscar.
It's
right?
Because that's been like Kurtzman's fucking hard on us to do this goddamn Section 31 bullshit nobody wants. They're doing this Starfleet Academy nonsense. I forget what the other thing they greenlit. I don't see Legacy as of April 29th, 2023. That still has not been greenlit yet. So
yeah, the lot of the talk in the Hollywood press, which means this is the story that they want out there now, that's come as a consequence, is, well, we definitely want to make it, but it's going to have to be in the back of the line with everything else we've decided to make. So it's gone from we'll see to soft yes, but we're going to have to get all of these other projects that we've announced
all
off
of
the
the
ground.
shit that nobody wants, all the shit that's going to bomb, all the stuff that has plagued Trek for the past, how many years has it been now since Discovery came out?
2017. Yeah, so it's been 6 years.
And the only thing short of Lower Decks, which I personally love, and Strange New Worlds, which was good.
Yeah.
But Picard and Discovery, where all the money was and all the effort, nosedived and just hemorrhaged viewers left and right. And the big redemption on that, no action on it. So that's Alex Kurtzman and Secret Robot for you. But anyways, in the end, Terry Matalas convinced, apparently, Patrick Stewart, like, hey, we're going to have to do the thing. And you don't have to wear a uniform, which is absolutely something I noticed through this.
And they, Terry Matalas had nothing but stone knives and bearskins, but it turns out that actually leads to good Trek because it makes it so that your actors have to act. And if there is a through line in this show that I can say for the whole run, is maximum effort on the part of every actor who's involved in this, with the one exception of Michelle Hurd, who cannot act, but everyone who can act acts as hard as they can. And even Patrick Stewart turns in an excellent performance throughout the show, with nuance and with a read on Picard that really matches kind of the read everyone else's, which is they are their characters, but they're 30 years older and they have changed. But they are still kind of the people you remember, but they have aged appropriately. They have changed with the experiences that they have had. And so, like, for example, like Stewart as Picard he's on the ball. He knows what the fuck is going on. He's giving good advice. He's taking correct actions. He's demanding accountability, but he's also not trying to be the younger version of himself and impose himself and command the room, because that's presently not his role, right? Like, he's retired. There are real Starfleet officers with real current commissions that ultimately are going to be making the decisions. He simply is working in his elder statesman role, but he is well in that, and they write that well for him. And then everybody else that starts to come in the first 4 episodes from the old crew, like Jonathan Frakes is awesome in this whole thing. I can't believe he just hasn't been acting for 10 years.
Across episode 1 through 4, like, Frakes is there. He's not bad, but I don't feel the overwhelming glow that you're giving this guy. Like, maybe 5 and deeper, it's better, but like, I've got some.
I think episode 4 he really turns on the jets. That conversation he has with Picard in the observation room about the death of his son.
That's good.
Yeah.
My view overall on episodes 1 through 4, and maybe it'll get better, I don't think it's the best thing I've ever seen. I wouldn't even be willing to call it great, but it's certainly good. And this is where Picard's season 1 should have opened.
Correct.
And we can say this about just about any other fucking Star Trek property out there. None of them ever hit exactly right episode 1. It takes a while to find the footing. It would have been great to see them start here and see where they could have gone over the course of 3 seasons instead of it taking 3 seasons to get to this. And I guess my biggest question in all of this is, why even bother acknowledging season 1 and season 2 even fucking happened? Like,
well, they almost flat retcon season 2. They definitively act like that shit did not happen.
No, but then they specifically call attention several times to the fact that Picard is a Soong type android, which
Correct.
I would have thought that they would have just swept that right under the fucking carpet.
So, you know who Robert Meyer Burnett is?
No.
He is somebody who worked at Paramount doing all of the Blu-ray releases for TNG and doing like all the behind the scenes documentaries they shot for that. He shot those. And he's been a Trek superfan his whole life. And he kind of got excommunicated, of course, because he hates NuTrek. But he knows Matalas, and he and Matalas got along, and he helped basically convince a lot of critics in the online space to give Picard season 3 a try. And he answered to this exact thing. So like, why not just retcon season 1? Like, why not just like forget any of that shit happened and move on?
Or hey, you know what? This is an alternate dimension.
But so part of it is that, you know, Matalas is trying to continue to work for these people. He wants to continue to do Star Trek. He can't motherfuck his bosses to their faces by just like acting like the shit they did doesn't count. And second, he found a way, Matalas, that he felt he could use what happened in season 1 to tell an interesting story for season 3. And having seen the whole thing, I ultimately agree that he came up with a way to use it in a way that worked.
There's some big asks. No, they're not really big asks. There's stuff that just seems weird. Like, the most glaring point is 7 of 9, who was this ridiculous Punisher vigilante Fenris Ranger, whatever the fuck that is, that was just going down and active shooter gunning down nightclubs and murdering people, full on Terminatrix, right? Mm-hmm. And that over the course of what, 3 years, 5 years? I don't know what the time difference between the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 3 realistically could be, but miraculously now she's first officer, commissioned Starfleet. Like, what?
It's like one holdover from season 2 that they don't explain. Don't worry thinking about it, but she got commissioned into Starfleet. So like that's a continuation of something that already happened. Frankly, I'm fine with it because obviously Matalas has a better grip on who 7 of 9 is supposed to be, and she's vastly improved in this season as like a character.
I'm not saying it's a bad fit. Yeah. I mean, her role and performance, Jerry Ryan's, yeah, I mean, she's the best actor in the show.
I think Michael Dorn's the best.
No.
I think Worf is awesome.
Worf comes off as corny in this thing, man. There's too much silliness around him.
They definitely, in the first 4 episodes, use him for lightness.
Yeah.
And it's very DS9, because that's kind of how he gets used in DS9 a lot. Is that
she comes off as the most realist actor.
True. No, I think Todd Stanwyck, who plays Liam Shaw, comes out as the realist actor.
I'm giving the award MVP to Jerry Ryan. I think she's in touch with who 7 of 9 should have been if season 1 and 2 didn't exist.
Agreed.
I think her dramatic scenes work the best. There's no cringe to her, and it's smooth and it all works. So I'm not criticizing her being this first officer. I'm just saying, based on the fucking shit show of season 1, like, it's an odd place to see her plugged in. And again, it's a shame that season 1 had to happen.
Also, we mentioned this when we reviewed Strange New Worlds, and it applies here as well. So I'm gonna repeat it. I'm just happy that Jerry Ryan, just as an aging, gracefully middle-aged woman, is just getting to do things. We pointed this out with Rebecca Romijn when she was playing number
Rebecca
1.
Romijn does not have the Hollywood look anymore. She looks
correct.
like she could be a GM at any mall anchor store, Macy's and H&M, whatever. I'm not saying she's ugly. I'm not saying there's anything undesirable at all, but that Hollywood starlet look is gone. And I'm not saying that Jerry Ryan is still Space Barbie in her 20s, but physically speaking, she is on top of her fucking game. She might not have a ton of plastic surgery, but this lady has the fucking genetics of a Greek god. And
I mean, yeah, she's
comparing different things here, man.
I agree. Jerry Ryan is still a very attractive woman, but there's two ways to go in this circumstance, and Jerry Ryan has chosen to allow herself to look her age.
And speaking to who works and stuff, like, she has the looks, she has the fucking acting chops. I'm amazed. She had a pretty good pedigree prior to Star Trek too, with these procedural dramas and stuff. Like, I'm surprised she's not working all over the place. And we have to assume
she did like Boston Public after Voyager.
I thought it was before.
That was after. She got work. That was in the early 2000s. That was after Voyager. She did things. I think that she had kids and all that. Like, I'm sure that probably made it
by choice. Then
yeah, she probably didn't engage with it necessarily because of that. But anyway, that's enough of the production background. Clearly, fucking wild how it came to be. So let's actually get into the episodes. So like you said, we're going to do 1 through 4. And I think the show kind of naturally has a cutoff on 4. So it's a nice compact story. And really 1 and 2 are the same thing. There's just a lot of setup in 1, and 2 starts to actually pay the story off, and then it kind of ramps into 3 and 4. And where we start is actually
Fallout 4.
Yeah, with Fallout 3.
Oh yeah, 3.
Yeah, it was. I don't want to set the world on fire by the ink spots, which any true gamer has certainly heard before, and it is because we are on a ship cruising around in space, but we see a briefcase from Lieutenant Commander Jack Crusher, which is definitely from a TNG episode. We heard some captain's logs from when they encountered the Borg, and there is a security breach, and who should pop out of bed but one Dr. Beverly Crusher. And she starts in on a serious action sequence as apparently whatever ship she's on is being found. And that's where the very first A+ gold star thing in this show makes itself known. And that is the soundtrack is a certified banger from beginning to end. Matalas apparently hired his composer from 12 Monkeys and said, go just rework all the existing Trek music into a big cinematic score, and it super works.
Seeing Bev come in this action Ripley shoot 'em up fiasco where you've got competent enemy soldiers coming over with laser Gatling guns, and she has a phaser shotgun, whatever the fuck that is, and she's killing them and blowing up environmental hazards. I start off very critical, this isn't Beverly Crusher. And I think the show will go on to do a nice job of bridging the gap of how does who you saw by the end of Nemesis turn into Peg Bundy from Sons of Anarchy.
There's even more payoff as the time goes on, but They whoever this Beverly Crusher is, she has lived a life, and she is apparently a young male companion on this ship whom we are not yet acquainted with. Whatever's going on here is become a desperate. She is injured in dispatching these invaders, and feeling that she has no other option, she sends a transmission to Jean-Luc Picard, and that is when we come back to Chateau Picard and begin the show.
Well, we've get an intro in there, and they start rolling this, and I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we're going to do with the intro here. And it is just a real quick little doo-doo-doo-doo-doo Picard logo, and then we move on. And as I'm watching that, and I'm like, good, don't jerk me around. I don't need a long intro here. I have to think back to season 1 Picard and that convoluted, goofy DNA, super abstract thing. And I really think this is like the point I want to like stop talking about Picard season 1, but it's a nice contrast of here is goofy, artsy shit that doesn't matter in season 1 versus season 3, where it's like, we got a big story to tell and we need to get the fucking show rolling here, get back into it.
Yeah,
and I
there
appreciate
is
it.
an opening to say, so to speak, but it's at the end. Again,
Which is badass.
A great theme music again.
Yeah.
The music adds so much to the show.
On the music real quick though, like I'm tired of modern fucking rock and shit like this Guardians of the Galaxy draw people in with these classic oldies or like, semi-modern stuff. I liked I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire, but any of the other recognizable music moving forward, kind of a turnoff.
Yeah, the use of Starship was a little odd, but this actual score was fantastic.
Yes. And reminiscent. I mean, it's given me the TNG vibes.
And
it's what I turned out I want after all. Good. Thank you.
Use movie themes. They use TOS movie themes. They use TNG movie themes. They do it all.
So, side note, and maybe it'll be something for us to talk about in the later recap, but like I thought that the rights were all a big mess, and that's why like Strange New Worlds Enterprise has to look different than any other Enterprise. By the fact they're using all the scores, and there's not, I'm just did rights for everything like congeal, and Matalas just have free reign to use whatever he wanted without having to change stuff?
So all of that rights discussion I've only ever seen from sort of fringe like gossip YouTubers that, sometimes they are getting things right, but I've never seen any verifiable evidence that this rights thing is really as bad as they describe. And it's a law question. It's a copyright question, and I'm sure are multiple interpretations of things, and I just don't necessarily put full stock in what has been described to us is certifiably the case.
Here's what you can certify right now. If there was one good thing that came out of Picard season 1, other than some legit badass action sequences, it's Romulan spy lady.
Yeah, and we do get her very briefly here. She is with Picard in Chateau Picard, and they're looking at a painting of the Enterprise D, and she's talking to him about like, hey, can I get it cleaned? You sure you want to come with me on this diplomatic mission? Some shit you missed from season 2, and this is the only important part, is they're dating. Her husband died off screen.
Of course. Yeah, delete the husband.
They deleted the husband so they could put the two of them together. Because, like, Una Bradley is, a very charismatic actor, and I'm sure Patrick Stewart wanted to do that. So that's why they're so close in these first scenes. But we do get
Here's
the best
what I'm
part
close with. And it starts with the opener, going through Jack Crusher's belongings and other stuff. These museum shots, because there's a lot of Easter eggs, and boy, am I here for him. And we got a little bit of this stuff back in season 1 when he went into his like archive at Starfleet headquarters. But man, he's got the Renaissance flute. He's got the fucking tapestry over the back. The Enterprise painting was similar to the one that he had in his ready room on the D. And he ties it all in. And we get a conversation that we have unfortunately had to have several times around Picard now. And it's, what is your legacy going to be? Do you care about it? Or are you only looking for the next thing? And instantly, these episodes 1 through 4 really do tie back to, they don't tie back to, they make me reflect on, and in many ways, they're ignorant of generations.
They're ignorant of generations? Expand.
I mean, so Generations, which we already did a Patreon of, as you would know, since you're a Patreon member and
You're listening to this. You literally basically forced us into this situation. Don't worry, we noticed.
We get to Generations, which one of the big focuses is Picard acknowledging that there's more days behind me than there are ahead of me. What do I have to show for it? I've dedicated my life to Starfleet, and I've always been able to kind of just be happy with that for myself because I knew my brother and my nephew, and then there was the fire, and they're gone, and I'm alone. And do I care about family? Is that a regret? And I would say he certainly comes to terms with that by the end. And even Nemesis, which say about that what you will, but you've got a son you never knew about, or you have some sort of offspring. And again, Picard's mystery son is another well-explored trope.
It's like the fourth time we've been there.
Sure, but the conversation, what's her name? It's the Romulan spy lady.
Laris.
The conversation she has with him there is exactly what he went through in Generations in his conversations with Troy. And I guess you could kind of look at that and say, well, this guy's had to come to terms. He's not looking like, he's not crying, he's not sobbing, he's not an emotional wreck. So him telling her, she doesn't know what his feelings are, and he's able to say, I guess this is what I've decided, is that there's only, forward, and I'm not worried about backwards. And there's these things that are important to me, but I don't need them. I'm moving forward. I've got my eyes on tomorrow, not necessarily yesterday.
I don't consider, I think you're all completely correct about your analysis. I don't consider that ignorant of Generations. If anything, I feel like the plot of this season builds on some of the sentiment in there, particularly obviously as it regards Jack, as we will discuss. And this beginning, I think, is necessary to just reset the conversation about where Picard is, right? Because they are hard ignoring season 2 in a lot of ways. And so, okay, so where is Picard at? Where's his starting point? And that is, he's kind of a little restless. He doesn't really want to like write his memoirs, and he's making a joke about it, but he's looking for a thing to do. And he's looking for a little bit of adventure in his life. He doesn't want to be done yet. And ultimately, of course, he gets the monkey paw curls one of the fingers, and he gets his wish, because what should happen but one of his communicators from the good old days starts going off while he's up writing correspondence in the evening, and it is a message from Beverly Crusher. It is encoded, and it has an encrypted set of coordinates with a message from Beverly saying that trust no one and don't involve Starfleet. Very mysterious, very weird. And when Picard starts to tell Laris about what has happened, and she gives her Romulan spy opinion, it's like, you haven't seen her in 20 years. She is the only one you have that completely cut off contact with all of you for some reason. And now she's reaching out to you because you're probably her last best option for whatever fuck is going on, and you need to go help her. That's the bottom line.
So he involves Starfleet.
He makes the logical first call, right? Like, Laris kind of leaves the scene at this point, and says, I know you got to go do this, and I can't be involved. I'm a Romulan spy, and I don't know all of your old friends, so I'm gonna go ahead and not crowd the ensemble cast here and leave the show. And He instead calls who you want him to call. He instead calls who you expected him to call in episode 1 of season 1. And that is William Riker.
Number 1.
And they go to the bar, and that is where the very first shot of Will Riker happens, where he is at the bar trying to charm the bartender, asking why the Enterprise D figures aren't selling, because of course there's Starfleet paraphernalia everywhere, because they're on the verge of celebrating what is known as Frontier Day, which will be the 250th anniversary of the foundation of Starfleet.
There's some shots here that I was a little salty about. And had all I seen was episode 1 and had to wait a week before I could get into episode 2, like maybe I'd looked at him a little bit more sinister, but some punching down on TNG. Why are all these figurines, all these Eagle Moss figures of the Enterprise D still around? Oh, you mean the fat one? Nobody wants those. Riker will go on to say, like, oh, I got a speech coming up. Who wants to hear a sad old man, drone on about, what do you say, boldly going?
Mm-hmm. And then Picard's like, I'm also giving a speech. Oh, I'm sure it'll be great. I feel like Riker's whole spot here as they start to discuss what's going on is that, like, it's like his elderly dad, is going to go do this, and he feels like he's got to go along with him, to, like, help take care of the situation and take care of him. Like, I can't let Jean-Luc do this by himself, right? Like, I gotta go if you're Will Riker. And he says, like, kind of glad to be away from Deanna and Kestra, his daughter.
He disclosed in season 1 that they lost a kid, right?
Lost their son. He's here to help. And of course, it involves Beverly, involves part of the old family, and wants to give some assistance. And that's where we get some backstory, right? They start to talk about how they were using the Myriad codec because that they didn't know if they were being observed on some planet somewhere. And the word Hellbird was used because the Borg had introduced a computer virus. None of this actually happened in an episode of TNG. This is just apparently adventures that occurred off screen. And ultimately...
No, that would have happened during when Picard was Locutus.
Yeah, but the Hellbird thing wasn't in Best of
It
Both
wasn't in
Worlds.
the script. We never saw it. But for shit that they're just retconning in there, works great.
Yeah, no, it fits. Like, it doesn't matter to me that these things didn't happen in an episode on screen.
I mean, it's a big fucking deal because there's a lot of times we watch Star Trek and they try to retcon this shit in there, and it's awful. And this is a great example of one throwaway line of dialogue can make all the difference between me sitting here and complaining about it for 4 minutes or me saying, good enough, let's keep going.
Sure enough, this ongoing retconning provides the lead as to where it is, where Crusher is hiding.
I need my 4 minutes to rant about something now, though, Joe.
Oh no.
And I can't, it's not Terry's fault that season 1 happened and that was so fucking bad. But man, when Riker's like, Jean-Luc, I gotta go. And then Picard goes, oh, Will, I can't ask you to put yourself in danger. And right there, I'm right back to what, you said, who should have been the first person he called. And that whole fucking thing, I can't ask my friends to threaten their life. I got to get all my throwaway fucking shitty new crew that we're never going to see again, minus the worst fucking one out of the lot. So Will Riker being very excited, and it's not to save, Data's only daughter's life or whatever. It's to save another crew member's life, and there he is. Exactly what should have happened the first time around. It's happening now. It's good. And I do genuinely like that Riker is seeking out this adventure because things are bad at home.
Yeah, that you start to get and that you find out in episode 4. Oh yeah, beautiful scene that they have. Yeah, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I think like it loops back to this moment specifically. Well, what is the thing he's hiding from? It was just the way he describes it. When we buried our boy, it was only 6 feet deep, but it was so dark. Like those lines that he gives when he's describing his despair, right? Which is what he's doing. He's describing is what my son is dead and there is nothing left of him for me to hold on to. And that he couldn't remain at home because his empathic wife could not endure, who feels everything, could not endure him feeling that nihilism, couldn't endure him feeling nothing. I was like, that was all so well done, not just in how Frakes paid off this first mention of his domestic troubles, and then eventually calls Deanna when we finally see her really for the first time within the show, but also in really like giving texture to Troy's powers in a weird way that I thought really worked, is that she's an empath regardless of if you have good emotions or bad emotions. And if you're Riker and you are feeling dark, you know,
You
sort
can't
of
hide it.
nihilism, like you can't shield her from it. Like she just gets it from you, right? It's just infecting her. And so you feel an obligation to flee physically so that your wife is not burdened by your depression.
And also burdened by the fact that she's a trained counselor. You know,
Yeah.
grief counseling is like a forte, and like there you are unable to help your own husband for this thing. You're also, it's an ugly mess, and him getting the fuck out of Dodge is a good fit. A bad fit, and if you take episodes 1 through 4 and why you can condense that story down into one podcast, I would say roughly 50% of this show takes place on
Matalas Prime.
Matalas Prime.
Yeah, he named it after himself. He did it.
Yeah. And it's fucking Raffi.
Yeah.
Who is so bad, it just drags the whole fucking... You can take half of the airtime of these first 4 episodes, and just basically throw it in the fucking trash. Why is she the remaining crew member out of Picard's season 1 that gets to be in this thing? You had hologram Captain Cigar.
Yes.
You had Driz, right?
Correct.
Who else was in this stupid fucking... Oh, 7
the
and 9
drummer,
still around.
from Sex Bomb.
Oh, right. What's her face?
She was the murder scientist.
Allison Pill.
Yeah.
Who was arguably the best.
I mean, season 2 kind of like prevented you from using some of these people. I won't go into it because it doesn't matter.
Raffi seems to be on Cigar Guy's, Dos Equis man's ship, right?
Correct.
But man, the amount of fucking screen real estate she occupies, and it's miserable. She cannot act her way out of a fucking...
She is the worst actor ever on Star Trek. And we watch Anthony Montgomery. Like
maybe she could beat out Precious Cargo Lady.
Yeah. Like,
maybe
regular actor. Worst regular actor ever on Star Trek. Like, I don't know why people think Michelle Hurd can act. It is pain to watch her.
There might be a character out there she's great at portraying. I want to say she was like some sort of like crooked police captain or something.
She was on Law and Order years ago, where she was playing a detective.
She was in Punisher, I think, or Daredevil on Netflix, and she was like a crooked cop or something. And she did that well. Recovering junkie, angst-filled, whatever. Fucking miserable. So here's all that matters there is that she is undercover. She is Starfleet intelligence. She's trying to work the underworld to find a lead on some material that was stolen from a Daystrom Institute cold storage high security facility.
Correct.
She's got a handler that she's only communicating through with text messages, and she is trying her best and cannot get any traction in her efforts.
When we cut back to Riker and Picard, they are launching into their plan. And their plan is, well, we got to take a Starfleet ship to go out of Federation space, which is ultimately where this signal is coming from, just outside Federation territory. So they got to find a way to get a ship to go there without telling them why it is they're trying to go there. Riker's plan, which Picard does not like, is, well, we're going to spring a surprise inspection on the USS Titan, or specifically the Titan A, which is important because this used to be Riker's command before he went into semi-retirement. He's a reserve officer now. and it is captained by a new captain, and that is Liam Shaw, played by, as I mentioned before, actor Todd Stanwyck, who is a guy from 12 Monkeys. So this is someone that came along with Terry Matalas as someone he likes. And Liam Shaw is my favorite character of the season. I love this guy. Liam Shaw is an irascible, sarcastic jerk, but also competent, never really wrong. Like he doesn't like do incorrect things ever, and has legitimate beef with our main characters for a reason that ends up being very beautifully plays out over the course of the first 4 episodes. And yeah, this guy's not exactly a friendly face, but let's figure out, we can talk him into it. And hey, listen, we know the XO is going to be friendly to you. And sure enough, when they get onto the Titan A, it is 7 of 9 as a commander, as the first officer. Although she does mention she goes by Commander Hansen at the explicit command of Liam Shaw. And they begin their fake inspection going through the ship, which is the set is well done for the Titan overall. I really like it. Feels like a Star Trek vessel, but modern.
I'm curious why they didn't up the lights.
You'll find out.
All right, I mean, I'll buy that, I guess. Shaw is specifically designed to be a piece of shit and unlikable and to shit on Star Trek fans.
I didn't get that at all.
Oh, come on. When he fucking meets Picard and Riker for dinner and he's already started eating.
Yeah.
And then goes on about you guys are fucking cowboys, blowing shit up, shooting stuff. This ridiculous diatribe where it's like Picard's entire fucking thing is that he was not Kirk. He was the diplomat. He was protocol and by the book. And this is all ridiculous. And this guy just being way too fucking hostile. Like,
but there's a reason for it. That's what I'm saying. Like,
sure, but I'm saying at first introduction, the guy is by design offensive to not only the main characters, but should be aggroing the audience as well, being like, fuck this guy, he's full of shit and he sucks.
I certainly understand. I understand what you're saying, and that like at first that is how he comes off. It's like, why is he being so aggro? But I feel like the fact that he had a very good reason for not fucking.
I'm just saying, out of the gate, he is designed to be a piece of shit.
You said like insulting to Star Trek fans, and I don't buy that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, go back and watch that fucking speech he makes where he's this accusatory tone and the condemnation that he has on Riker and Picard, dismissing their accomplishments. And again, chalking him up to like idiot cowboys just fucking out there doing as they please and shooting the place up, which is the antithesis of everything that you see out of 7 seasons.
It is for us, but like you have to think of it from the perspective of Liam Shaw, right? He fucking hates these two because all of his friends are dead because of their stupid adventures, right? Like, and he tells the story. He is the best scene of the first 4 episodes is him going into the holodeck and saying when he met Picard, which is at the Battle of Wolf 359. Sure. And he goes through the whole Picard, narration.
Who would also be in every fucking history book for like all of the other countless accomplishments, first contacts, and universe-saving things he did. Like, he's got a good reason to have a grudge, but to just classify him across it, again, he's made to piss the audience off. And I think he accomplishes that well. And there is the, you were Locutus, you killed my friends. Like, that's all legit. And it begins a good redemption arc for him in the eyes of the audience. And I don't know where it'll go past 4, but, him saving the day with his old school grease monkey abilities in episode 4. Like, it works. The guy's got shock value up front.
That's what I'm saying. I'm taking exception to the idea that he was built to piss off Star Trek fans because his backstory is so entwined in the deep lore of TNG that I don't think it's insulting. It's like, it makes you
You don't
wonder.
know that until episode 4, though. I'm saying for the purposes of episodes 1, 2, and potentially 3, this guy is there to be an asshole bad guy. He is shitting on the heroes, Riker and Picard. He has effectively subjugated and humiliated Seven of Nine by making her go by her, dead name or whatever. Like, he is a bad guy by design, and he will improve later on.
He's antagonistic. He's not a bad guy. I feel like there's a big difference between the two.
No, and that starts with what, episode 2, like, and that was the one where you said, like, it's an entire episode basic. Well, we'll get to episode 2, but we do a quick around the bridge here too, and this is something that you didn't get out of Discovery, of like, here's people's names. They matter. Some matter more than others, specifically LeVar Burton's daughter, who is not miserable to have on screen. And this is the real art here, is that Picard season 3 very clearly has a ulterior motive of creating a spinoff. You have an infusion of new characters, some of which are reasonable and good to have, like LaForge's daughter, Shaw, and some of these other Titan cast members. And then you've got Jack Crusher, who I feel is shoehorned in there. Like, let's talk about Jack Crusher real quick. Like, I could have done without him. I don't think he's bad. I think the worst thing about him, like the second biggest complaint after Raffi about this fucking thing, is the expectation you're going to take whatever this fucking... What's Jack Crusher's name?
The guy who plays him, Ed Spaliers.
You're going to tell me Ed Spaliers is a fucking day under 38?
Yeah, okay. If there is a plot hole in the first 4 episodes, it is in the ages, right? Like, as we will find out over the course of our drama here, Jack Crusher is the son of Beverly Crusher and Jean-Luc Picard, consequence of a rendezvous just prior to Beverly leaving the Enterprise. And the problem with this is that would have put Beverly in her 50s and Picard in his 60s, and he is supposed to be like 22. And okay, the magic, the 24th century space magic, maybe like fertility is gone,
Sure,
is able to be expanded. I'll buy that. But Ed Spaliers doesn't look nor reads like a man of the age he is supposed to be. This is a dude who's got way too much tread on his tires, who's seen too much, who's done too many things for me to buy that he's in his 20s. That man is in his 30s. And that works too, frankly. Like, it even makes it perhaps slightly more interesting.
There was some time dilation. He spent a couple of years on Planet Donut.
There's actually a ship later that's named after the astronaut from Planet Donut.
That's dope.
Yeah, there's like a lot of like just little things in this whole season where
there's a part in this where Raffi's trying to piece together where the terrorist attack is going to take place. And it's Rachel Garrett's statue in front of the Starfleet recruitment thing, which I thought was fucking badass.
The Red Lady, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, that's her memorial statue. The heroic captain of the Enterprise. See, the whole show is just filled with little moments like this. I think Jack... you're finally doing it, right? You're doing the thing you teased 3 times before. You're giving Picard a son, right? Like, he's a family man, the thing he has never wanted to be. He was never comfortable around kids.
More than that, because there was one son that showed up in TNG that was like a fake somehow. Was he like Correct. A genetic clone, or
it was faked by some sort of temporary DNA that would make it seem like he was his son? That was like was Diamond Bach's way of like getting back at him, like in season 7.
Didn't he attempt to reconnect with him somewhere along the line?
No, because it was in season 7. Like, it was at the end of the show that plot happened.
I swore there was some supplemental thing where, like, or maybe we talked about that it would have been appropriate. Yeah, Picard's fake son, or Picard wants a son, might be like the sleeper trope of TNG.
Yeah, there was the episode where there was the human that was being raised by the aliens, and he kind of has to make a fatherly connection there. And then of course there's Shinzon. So whatever number this is, it's definitely they've run this play.
X times a charm,
Yeah.
whereas X equals however many other fucking times. And this is the right way to do it because it's with Beverly, with zero mention of fucking Will Wheaton.
No, Wesley gets mentioned. I mean, not extensively, but
In
Beverly.
this episode range?
Yes, Beverly says in the confrontation when they finally talk, right? Like they don't talk about the fact that Jack is Picard's son until episode 3. And they have the confrontation in sickbay, if you recall, where he comes down and is like, okay, you gonna fucking explain how I have a son who's a man, who's an adult? I've never known this, and you just didn't talk to me for 20 years? And she goes through like, I lost my son Wesley to the same stars that that you belong to. You know, like I couldn't lose another child. I couldn't lose another son to space shit. Like I'm over that. So he gets mentioned, but I think that giving Picard a son who's already a fully formed adult is the right call. You got to have someone who can read against him with some sophistication, or it doesn't work. Giving him a son that is mildly antagonistic towards him in his existence, and we even get a little bit of reason as to why. And that works. I think the only thing that doesn't is, you know, like I get that Jack's superpower is supposed to be his charm. He just charms everybody. He's just like a smooth guy. But he's just very aggro all the time with people and shifts between like being hey buddy and being Mr. Charming and then like being pissed off in your face in a way that like that should throw up some red flags. Like I don't know how it is you're able to navigate all these social situations while hard shifting into kind of being petulant and then being the smoothest motherfucker on the whole ship, you know?
I'm just saying the actor is way older than 20 something and it sticks out. Ultimately, everything you just said, that him being an adult, him being capable, and what I'm going to assume the most important component to that being it being reasonable that this guy will eventually join the spin-off crew on a spin-off series would make sense and be feasible.
Also, Sidney Vilforge is not played by LeVar Burton's daughter is one of his daughters on the show. We have not met that daughter yet.
Oh.
This is played by a for real actor, which is why she's actually good.
So yeah, back to that real quick. Around the bridge, like there's new crew members and minor cast members. They're all charming. I don't want to strangle any of them, and none of them detract from the scene they're in.
They got a cool Vulcan science officer named Tavine who's bald. I fucking love her look.
I like the uniforms they're wearing, this fold-over smock. The uniforms are kind of a mess. Every ship seems to have its own different thing going on. If we're to bring season 1 in at all, they're still using the same comm badges from season 1, which I did like. But starting with lower decks, they really started dipping their toe into different ships have different uniforms based on what their function is within Starfleet, and I buy it.
Yeah, no, it kind of created a canon excuse for the inconsistency between shows and ships uniforms, which is a kind of a holdover from TOS because different ships had different comm badges, mission badges.
Yep.
In TOS, so like it's kind of a callback to that. It's like different uniforms because the captain's got different preferences.
I do not like the phasers they're using, these pistol Romulan disruptor looking phasers. I actually got kind of excited when Worf pulled out the old Type 2 to kill the baddie.
Yeah, the changeling.
Season 1 ends with Shaw fucking pissed because 7 to 9 went behind his back while he was sleeping and diverted the ship out to the edge of Federation space. 7 has a great scene where she so Shaw goes to meet with Picard and Riker, and Riker's like, hey, here's this plan. We're gonna go way out of our way, but then we're going to show up on time and it's going to make us look great. It's going to be good. And Shaw's like, no, fuck you.
I don't like
I'm
this.
not even
I
going
don't
to
know
look
why
you in
you're
your eye.
here.
I'm going to shit on you. You know, you're a fucking retired admiral. Congratulations on that, by the way. You're not a real captain. I am a real captain. We're doing this thing by the book. I'm not accommodating you at all. And you can go sleep in fucking hot bunks.
Yeah, go to some lower deck bunks. You know, sit next to Ensign Boimler down there.
You can go sleep in a hallway. And 7 of 9 confronts Picard and Riker while they've been sleeping in their bunks and goes, give me the fucking real deal on this. Like, she talks to Picard like a friend. And those were things that worked in Picard season 1, was that they have, even though they didn't ever meet prior to Picard season 1, they still had that common ground that they were both ex-Borg. And that gets thrown in their face by Shaw. But certainly Seven will go on to establish a relationship with Picard over season 1 and season 2. And it works well here, where Riker tries to jump in and like cut her off. And he's like, no, man, like
we're good.
We're buddies. And she's got a right to be pissed. And we find out that she's as mad as she is because without even conferring or conspiring with Picard, she diverts the ship to the coordinates they want. And she's like, I've just thrown my fucking commission away for you. Why am I doing it? Also, I question why I'm even in Starfleet. You, Janeway, this leadership comes natural. I just feel stupid.
It is an interesting plot point to like guide her character on, right? Let's get her out of being the Punisher and let's put her kind of into a role that we would expect 7 of 9 to be at this point in her life. You know, absent everything else, Voyager's home. She needs to find something to do, right? Which is a lot of what happened in season 7 of her like considering like what the fuck is my life supposed to be? What
She
am I
never
supposed
wanted to
do?
be on Earth.
Right, like
She's an person who is interested in exploring. Titan, by the way, is a deep space exploration vessel.
yes, it is an exploration vessel. It's a Constitution 3 class vessel.
What is Titan 1? Because when they show the conference room, same way Enterprise used to have, there's like golden models on the wall of the previous iterations, and there's 3 of them.
The original Titan, the Titan before this was a Luna class explorer, so it was a similar ship built to go into deep space on diplomatic and scientific missions.
And that's the one that Riker took over.
Correct. And this is a rebuilt version of that ship. Like
so
literally
there was Titan Luna, and then there was Titan 2, and that got refurbed into the Constitution, or
no, the Titan that Riker was captain of is this ship. But it has been rehabbed into an entirely new class of vessel.
So it was a Luna, and then it gets turned into
a Constitution 3. The reasoning, you know, this is all stuff that came from the production staff on Twitter as the episodes came out, was because so much of Starfleet's shipbuilding capacity was destroyed when Utopia Planitia blew up, that as ships aged, rather than decommissioning them, Starfleet has taken to repurposing and rebuilding them into new designs to extend their service life. And so when the Titan reached a certain age, they're like, well, we don't want to just scrap it. We're going to instead rebuild it into new specifications. And that's what they built in the plot point of Shaw being necessary to fuck with the nacelle coverings because they're from the original version of the Titan. They're 20 years old.
I don't really care for the design. That scalloped look of the saucer in the back makes it look not pizza cuttery, but I certainly prefer the Luna configuration. I think
the mission pod, or like the roll bar or whatever it is on top.
The vaguely Miranda looking pylon placement, and certainly they're going for here the imagery of an Enterprise.
Right.
It's not an Enterprise, but it looks like an Enterprise, and it looks more like obviously the Constitution, 1701, 1701A ish. And I think that's cool that they're on a starship. It's not Enterprise, but it's Enterprise enough, and it's taking them off to do Star Trek things. It works. Picard and Riker, they fly out in the ugly ass shuttlecraft. They dock. There's a line in there I like where Picard's complaining about his hands cramping, and then I think Riker says something like, "Great, your hands are cramped. My knees are fucked up. As long as we don't get in any gunfights, we'll be just fine." As they get ready to like force entry, they get in there. Jack Crusher attacks them. They find Beverly in the stasis pod. There's some back and forth. And then the bad guys reveal himself in a very bad robot, very pointy, huge, evil-looking bad guy ship.
So this is when we get Amanda Plummer playing Captain Vadic. Vadic, well, I should say Amanda Plummer is actually Christopher Plummer's daughter. So Christopher Plummer was General Chang in Star Trek VI, classic theater style actor who did tons of film. And Vadic is a fucking psycho, and they make that clear from the beginning. She just acts like one. She's like the one on the bridge, like General Chang before her, like quoting Shakespeare and being fucking over dramatic, and like smoking a cigarette while wheeling around in her fucking chair with a goddamn scar on her face, like yeah. Then she's just like, I'm just gonna be the hammiest fucking bad guy I can possibly be, and be gleeful in being evil, and that's just gonna be my vibe. And I kind of like that she just went all in on it.
This character works great.
Yeah.
Something looks off about them. Something feels off about them. And that will all come into perfect clarity later on. This is a great Star Trek villain for Picard to have to deal with on many levels. It's an interesting position, excluding whatever the fuck happened in season 1, season 2, but Picard to be in a situation where he is severely outgunned. He is not on a flagship. Even the Galaxy class would be matched 1-for-1 with like a Romulan warbird. But even though he's in a nice Federation vessel later on in this, it is still not a warship. And this thing, the description of what's this thing called? The Shriek?
The Shrike. Yeah.
The Shrike, which was a Romulan attack class, wasn't it? Shrike class. Yeah. You remember there was an episode in TNG where they scan something and it's like this gunboat, and then Riker's like, Worf, hit it with the phaser and disable it. And Worf gives it a little love tap, and this thing's like so armed to the teeth, the whole thing just fucking blows up. And Riker's like, I told you disable it. And he's like, I didn't mean to blow him up.
He was just so fragile.
That's this thing, only it's not fragile. It's got every gun in the book.
So they've quickly established that the Shrike is after Jack, and that she presents herself as a bounty hunter, and that Jack is a wanted fugitive in Federation space and without, and she's here to collect. Of course, our heroes are disinterested in allowing her to seize him. This is kind of where some of the cheapness and the age of your actors comes into play. They try to do an action sequence on this little medical ship, the Helios, and it's very low rent because like a couple guys come in and Riker just like rolls a grenade over and blows them up, and they're like, okay, now they'll never show back up again because clearly trying to come over here is a death trap. I rolled a grenade very lackadaisically.
Berman era Star Trek can tell me that you can trap Klingons in a ring of fire and humiliate them, and they will leave and never come back.
It is in the Berman era tradition. You're right.
You know what?
Action, bad gunfights.
Will Riker can throw a grenade at some fucking dudes, grease them, and go, you know what? We're not going back over there. They put up some pattern dispersers so they can't beam them off, which is good thinking.
Yeah, it's like one of the things that I mentioned before where like Picard is kind of playing about our head of the curve. He's like setting this stuff up, and he's like, yeah, I set it up because I wanted to see what they were after. They tried to beam you out, so I think they're after you. Like, oh, okay, good. You weren't that effective the last 2 fucking seasons, Jean-Luc, but cool, I'm glad you're here now.
There's 3 stories that happen in the episodes of 1 through 4. There is the here and now Picard Riker Starfleet story. There is the god-awful Raffi's adventures in the ghetto. And then there's flashbacks. There's a lot of flashbacks.
Mhm.
And the flashbacks left me feeling incredibly jealous that these stories that get told offhanded, like Picard's encounter with the fucking Hirogen,
Yes.
and all sorts of stuff, just stories I want to hear, and that would have worked and been like, wow, I want more of this. So
Picard and Worf versus the Hirogen Alpha? Give me that.
guess those holographic growing pains didn't last. So Picard thinking ahead of the curve. Wherever you thought you knew Picard ending in Nemesis, he had a lot more adventures after, hands-on action adventures, and seeing him. He's not rolling down hallways and running up the ceiling like fucking the EMH and Inside Man. But yeah, preemptively putting up these pattern dispersers, stuff like that works. Ultimately, this ship gets caught in a tractor beam. They're not going anywhere. And then this badass shot, and I loved it when I saw it in Lower Decks, and I love it here, and then Titan. Shaw, basically with a gun to his head at this point. Am I going to let 2 Federation heroes die in this insubordinate, treasonous...
Am I going to go back to Starfleet Command and tell them I let the man who saved the galaxy multiple times perish? Yeah. Even if I hate him, and I have all the reason in the world to hate him, I don't think I can actually explain me just watching him die.
Am I going to act like a bitch?
No. And Liam Shaw ain't no bitch. Okay, I'm the captain. Fine, let's do this.
There's a great scene of 7 to 9 calling him out, too. Who also, along the way, gets relieved of duty and confined to quarters. But there comes Titan, pops in, severs the tractor beam. Now the medical ship's loose. They beam everybody over, and Shaw has a huge fucking mess on his hand because there is a bounty hunter in a ship with way more guns than Titan has. And more importantly, there is a very morally ambiguous legal gray area that they are neck deep in.
They're not in Federation space, as Shaw rightly points out. I cannot fight this monstrous ship. I'm in an exploratory vessel. I'm not built to fuck with this thing. If we fight this guy, we will lose. That's what he says. That's the fucking math. I'm looking at it. And now I got to find a way out of this fucking circumstance because she is saying, I ain't letting you leave with my bounty. I want Jack Crusher. Give him to me and I'll leave you be. Don't, and I will fight you.
You get 1 hour to decide, and maybe this will help you make up your mind. And then she's got a tractor beam that can grab shit and throw it Half-Life 2 gravity gun style.
And she throws the
Bev's ship.
Yeah, the Helios at the Titan. And it there's a lot of great space effects. They really spent a lot of their money with the CG team because they know people want to see it, right?
It's what you're there for.
It's what you're there for. So here it is. You see this thing scrape across, and all the details are right too. You see the shields are protecting the ship and how the shields protect the ship. They're close to the hull and that sort of thing. And it scrapes across, and you see it break apart. And they're like, "Holy shit! Did she throw that ship at us? Oh, this is bad. This is real bad." And go ahead.
So now you have a honest to God Star Trek episode where there is no clear right answer, and the crew is going to be left to have to sort out what the right course of action is going to be, because what feels like the right answer and what the law says is the right answer are neck and neck. They're even on the scales.
A quick catch up on our B plot, which is Raffi not being able to act.
Raffi getting too much screen time.
And, she's trying to barter with this stupid, this contact that won't tell her things, and she gets frustrated and she can't act. I'm sorry, I'm not going to stop talking about Michelle Hurd can't act. The Starfleet recruiting center gets fucked up by a portal gun. Literally, the gun from Portal is used to like suck this whole building out from the ground and then gets just all the debris showered in another place as a terrorist attack.
On the second building.
It's really cool. Like,
super good.
I love it. And this raises the desperation. There's fucky shit about, and she is going to pursue a lead that there's a Ferengi crime lord named Sneed that may be responsible for the hijacking of this weapon, and she's going to explore it.
Conveniently, her ex-husband just so happens to have a bar on this planet. She taps him as a contact. He goes, our son who you botched your reunion with said that, you're bothering him, and hey, I'm going to give you a choice. We can fix our family and you can be a good mother and whatever, or I can put you into contact with Sneed and you have to choose. And luckily they don't make her have to actually say, as little acting out of her as possible. She picks Sneed because she's a junkie. She's addicted to the hunt. And he goes, all right, I'll set it up.
But Sneed, I like the idea of a Ferengi crime boss. Like, the Ferengi have always come off as comic relief whenever they're used. And the idea of like a hardened criminal Ferengi would be fucking
he's Gary
vicious.
Oldman from was it True Romance, where he's the like Rastafarian.
Oh yeah, okay. Was that True Romance? I forget. I know what character you're talking about. He was also the criminal bad guy in The Professional.
Yeah, but that guy's calm and collect. This guy's just a piece of shit slaver.
Yeah, he's got like fucking hats and everything. I like it.
I like the alterations they do to the Ferengi physically. They bring the earlobes down, but they're still overly pronounced. It looks good. It looks real. The guy seems sinister. We'll just finish this plot line off real quick. Raffi goes to confront him. She's got a real half-assed story. Hey, this Romulan guy you're trying to pin all this on, I know he's a scapegoat. I represent him. He wants to know why you're smearing his name. Ferengi goes, well, I know you don't represent him, or I don't think you represent him. I think you're Starfleet. I want you to do the drugs I know you're addicted to. Stardust or whatever the fuck it is. She does the drugs, and he goes, haha, I've got the Romulan's head here. I don't have any loose ends. I'm taking all your money, and we're going to kill you, and I'm going to take your head. And I'm like, thank God, please kill her. I'm done being on the receiving end of ass whippings. It should be me doing the ass whipping henceforth. Ninja Worf.
It was, Michael Dorn's only request. Make it so I body everyone. Right? Like, and that's what he does. We even get the Klingon battle music, right? Everyone comes right on scene, like dun, 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 and he is mechlething the fuck out of these dudes. He decapitates them, including Sneed, and collects Raffi. And sure enough, it's very clear that it is Worf who was her contact all along. And this plot line will continue to when they go and get like a potential prisoner to interrogate after decapitating all of Sneed's dudes. And this is where you start to kind of connect the overall meta plot, which is with changelings, which is a very DS9 thing. And we actually had a discussion about if you were going to continue to watch the show, or you should watch the show based on how much it spoils for DS9. And it ultimately kind of like just stops with the changelings are the founders, and which you already knew.
Quick side note, everything was spoiled for me on this.
You tried to avoid it, but there was no avoiding it.
Yeah, I'll be surprised by the end of this if there's anything that I can point to and say that it wasn't spoiled. I knew that Worf was going, and this isn't because I'm watching videos. This is just bullshit headlines and just YouTube thumbnails or whatever. I knew that Worf was going to be her handler, which was kind of cool watching the dialogue he had with her through text messages. Very Worf dialogue. The only other dialogue it could have been was like maybe Data or something, which would have been interesting. But obviously, in hindsight, it's a shame I didn't watch this stuff as it came out because I couldn't sit there and, conjecture and theorize. But yeah, Worf fucks everybody up, grabs her, brings her back to her ship. Who are you? son of Moog, son of Alexei, Slayer of Gowron, Bane of Duras, this and that. Hey, I made chamomile tea.
I have been, as humans say, working on myself.
Which, again, the humor goes a little too far with him. It's not miserable. It's not bad. It's just a smidge too much for my taste. It's zingy. It works, but
He's also like the most comfortable just playing Worf, though. Like,
played him for so long.
yeah, he has the most experience in being on Trek, and he
His
just
ridges,
slips right back in.
his ridges, the makeup they're using on him.
They said it was different. Like Michael Dorn said, like the process had changed a lot since the last time he played him.
The ridges are very clearly different. Like he
Yeah,
looks more like a TOS undiscovered country Klingon than he does how he did by season 7 or whatever happened through DS9.
I imagine they did that just because it's probably more comfortable for him. I
Sure.
mean, he's the youngest of the main cast, and he's in his 60s. I mean, I'm sure you don't want to sit in the fucking makeup chair all day with that.
Sure.
So they determined through their investigations that there is some sort of changeling nonsense occurring here. In fact, there's a line from Worf that suggests that Constable Odo tipped him off to the fact that there are changelings doing fucking changeling bullshit, and that's got something to do with whatever's going on, which does not actually get fully developed in these 4 episodes. And in fact, this plot does not actually ever intercede with the main plot in the first 4. That doesn't happen until the 5th episode. So
Sure.
that's it. That's it for that. We'll stop talking about Raffi. I think Worf's great. I think he just feels like Worf. He is Worf, and I really appreciated how much he felt like him.
I thought that the portrayal of Riker in this episode was much better than the first one. Maybe it took a little bit of time for Frakes to really get back in the saddle. Maybe the dialogue was a little more conducive to it, but I think Riker's a hard character to write for because he's got this impish rep, and I think too many people want to play into that. Like when I think about all the characters to write for, Will Riker is probably the weakest. Because he was supposed to start as this hotshot up-and-comer, and that was really his good arc, was that he should have left the D a long time ago. That's what Shelby calls him on, right? And then him having to come to terms with, do I want this career? Do I want to succeed? Or do I want to acknowledge the fact I enjoy where I'm at to my own detriment? And that was all great. But in the time since Next Generation and the movies, this internet sensation of Will Riker exists to put his penis in things and to flash a smile, I think really became a detriment to the character for the writing on this. So him talking about his dead son was a good chance to kind of ground the character as a real person and not just an internet meme anymore. What point does he get command of the Titan?
During episode 3. So episode 2, the tension is really Picard finding out that Jack is his son. Because he's not confronting it. He's kind of quietly not addressing it. Because Beverly is incapacitated until the very end. So there's no confirmation. Riker is the one who's trying to like just being like, he looks just like you, right? Like, Beverly's son, 20. Do the fucking math, Jean-Luc. Like, literally says it to him. What's wrong with you? That's your boy. Like, we know that's your boy. I have eyes. I can see that. You can see that.
You tell me you never put your D in Bev's V? Are you serious right now? Yeah.
He knows that they have, right? Like, they have that. It's in the turbo lift where he's like, Jean-Luc, do the math. You fucked her and she made that. Like, he's your son. It's a very frank conversation between two men who have known each other for a lifetime, right? Like, I know you don't want to confront this, and Patrick Stewart's to his credit as well. He's like, he knows. He's just kind of like burying it. You know, it's in his expression.
He also has bigger fish to fry in this because over looming all of this is you have a 1 hour episode, and over the course of this hour, we need to determine, are we going to hand over this fugitive to a bounty hunter as is reasonably expected
Or
as
are
we
we
are
gonna fight?
outside of
Yeah.
Federation law, or are we going to go into a fight that we are going to 100% lose? And they're right on the edge of this nebula, which nebulas are put there specifically for running and hiding. It's a time-honored tradition. Confirmation is made that this is his kid. That changes things, and just as Shaw's getting ready to order him over, Picard finally puts his foot down, overrides Shaw's orders, says belay that, keep him on. And in that moment, I think that is really the first time since Picard season 1 where you really see Jean-Luc Picard put on the daddy pants. And season 3 is much more kinder to Picard. Season 1, especially, it's him apologizing, just guilt over and over and over and over again. You're like, this is ridiculous. This hero has been emasculated, and
Yeah, he was
just
purposefully emasculated in that season. That's what we hated most about it.
everybody shits on him for every little thing, and everybody is ignorant to the fact this guy saved the universe a million times over. No one is making him apologize for anything here, but like you said before, this guy's taken a backseat in a lot of conversations. And it's in the end of episode 2 where he comes out of his cocoon and goes, God damn it, I'm a boss. And I'm about to start fucking laying down the law here. I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to give some fucking orders, and you're going to do what I say. And everybody takes a step back. Shaw kind of shirks and goes, "You're going to
Yes,
fucking
sir.
pay."
Like,
yes, sir.
yeah.
I'm going to throw you under the goddamn bus once we're out of here. But oh yeah, it turns out you are in charge after all.
Yeah, it is a story ultimately of across the season of Jean-Luc establishing himself as the leader.
Having balls,
you know,
and it felt great to watch.
Yeah, and it's very gradual. Like, even these first 4 episodes are really only part of that story, right? Like, it really takes to the end where he's really the one who is in charge of what's happening. And going into episode 3, of course, they're starting to fight against the Shriek. We have a classic, even in the 25th century, there are IEDs everywhere. And one of those IEDs goes off a little too close to Shaw's face, and he gets like his leg.
The floor blows up underneath him like a fucking ejector seat, launches him, and he busts he gets knocked. He breaks ribs on a railing, ironically there to hold on to so such things don't happen. And then I think he hits his head on like some of those sharp ass stairs. This is why in Berman era you put nice carpeting down on the floor of your.
Don't you miss the carpeting? You need it.
It's not. It's there for sound dampening. It's also there so you don't break your fucking face on a 90. The Galaxy class has a ramp, a nice gradual ramp, not these stairs. Stairs break bones. Stairs break ribs.
So
and that's what happens.
In his injured state, as he is being led back down to sick bay, he angrily puts Riker in charge because he's grounded as first officer. So he doesn't have that. He's got a bunch of kids on the bridge. So he's like, you got us into this, you're getting us out of this. And he transfers Commander Riker and he fucks off to sick bay to be put back together. And so
that's Riker, a real fuck yes moment, by the way, there too.
I mean, it goes to Shaw being like, he's still a professional, right? Like, he's not wrong about the situation being fucked, that they shouldn't be in it. And he's like, you know what, Riker? You fucking fix this. Like, I am now going to be unconscious for a while, so you handle it.
I just spit out 2 mouthfuls of blood, and there should have been some fucking teeth in there. I know you guys begrudgingly are by my own, words, you're cowboys and going off road. Like, this is your fucking thing. You've dragged us into it. Now you fix it. And this is good writing here too, to like get him out of the way, get Riker back in that command seat, which felt very gratifying to see Riker grow a pair of balls and start giving some fucking orders. And
then Jean-Luc becomes his first officer. Just kind of like, okay, I'll be your number one, but you are still an employee of this organization. I am not. So, you're in charge. And
that's cool.
It was very interesting because ultimately Riker is too cautious. He's trying to he feels very self-aware of the fact, like, this ship and all of its and all of its crew are in danger because of our shenanigans. That's bad. I need to get everyone out of this without getting them killed. Right, that's his priorities. And Picard is trying to tell him, like, bro, you're gonna have to fucking fight this bitch. You cannot just run. You're gonna have to use some kind of tactical advantage, and you're going to have to ambush her and beat her. That is
Well,
the
before
way
they even
out.
get to that, they got to get away to lick their wounds.
Yeah,
And the best way to get away from the bad guy in Star Trek is
he's
to,
hiding in Nebula.
well, it's to start by lighting a fart on fire. So they shoot a probe or a torpedo or whatever, and then they shoot that with a phaser, and it blinds her long enough that they can.
Riker half explains the plan to Picard, and Picard's already doing it. I thought that was so funny. Like, quick, if you set off the flight, the fart's on. He's just like, pshoo, pshoo. Like, yeah, okay. Like, I'm Jean-Luc Picard. I've been a space captain for 40 years. I know how to light a fucking fire on fire. Let's get the fuck out of here.
By the end of this exchange with her at this point, or along the way here, I was really expecting to see the Picard maneuver come out. And I'm hoping by the end of the episode, by the end of the series, the Picard maneuver gets to come out one last time somehow. But they get off, they fly out. Before we even get to this point, though, there is a flashback of Picard and Riker celebrating the birth of Riker's kid. They use the de-aging on it. It looks good.
And he's wearing the first contact uniform. So that's how, like, they look de-aged. He's got the first contact uniform on. And they're talking about how, he came down and, he was so small and he just wanted to, it was very fatherhood stuff. And,
yes.
Picard's like, oh, that's great. I'm glad you're a dad. Troy calls and is like, get up here. Your son's a fucking handful. It's like, okay.
7 and 9's confined to quarters, which jump back to me criticizing Jonathan Archer's Mary Sue ass, who, helped design the fucking Warp 5 engine. Yet when there's engine repairs to be done is not there. Like, if you've got one person on that ship that should be helping fix the fucking engines, get her off house arrest. Get her down in the fucking engineering. Be like, you are the smartest human being in the galaxy.
Existence. Yeah.
Go realign the fucking warp coils.
There's no engine set, though. I mean, it's part of the problem with the season is they didn't build one for season 2, so there is not one for season 3.
Engineering sets are expensive, and not even TNG was supposed to have one. Gene Roddenberry wrote scenes specifically in engineering after Farpoint was initially established just to force them to have to make it, and they were not happy about it.
They go deeper into the nebula. We should note that Sydney LaForge, I really like her because she plays the Augie Willikers newbie role, but it's not done in a Mary Sue way. Like, how we really hated Uhura in Strange New Worlds because it's like number one with the bullet Yas Queen nonsense, and it was just got on her nerves. She's like the plucky new person, but she's also like annoying in that role. She's very capable, but she's not like all, she doesn't have like special wisdom. She's this like raw skill, and she requires the guidance and mentorship of those around her, like the way you would expect a young officer.
But she also shows support, and I don't remember what point it is, but she comes by to visit 7 and 9 and like reaffirm, hey, you made the right choice.
Calls her 7 of 9 ends up being a plot point later.
Yeah, her portrayal there makes me wonder: is it hard to make this character good on screen, or is it actually take effort to make annoying Mary Sues that are abrasive to watch? Like, what's the formula there? Because this LaForge's daughter here is great. I can't say a single negative thing about the portrayal, the way the character's written, the way the actress delivers it.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She name drops her dad a bunch. It doesn't get annoying. I don't understand it. She even points out, like, at a certain point, like, my dad and I have the same thing in common. And it's like, what, insatiable lust for holograms? No, it's we have a hard time making friends, but the friends we do make, we treat like gold. She even gets to die. I mean, that's good. It's, she gets shot. She gets to do all the fun stuff.
So episode 3 continues along with Riker trying to get them out of the situation, and he's being too cautious, and Picard is telling him he's being too cautious.
The cautious part really felt weird for Riker. And I don't know if the illusion there was supposed to be that I've lost my son and I now am hyper aware of death, and that I can bring the same level of grief to all of the parents of all of the people on this ship, or I've just grown older and wiser in my age. But that, again, Riker's a hard guy to write for. Riker always used to be Johnny Danger. Riker was always quick to leap into the dangerous away team missions. Riker was, the best pilot around till Tom Paris, and willing to do the crazy shit. Like, where do you feel this caution's coming from? Do you feel that this is appropriate to the character's trajectory post Nemesis, or?
I think it's situational. He is, as I mentioned, I think a little bit ago, everyone's in this mess because this was his fucking idea.
Well, hold on. Let's bookmark that for a second. Go to when Shelby showed up, because Shelby gave him heat. And I think even back to that point, he had really started playing cautious hands, because that was Shelby's criticism of it, wasn't it? That
you're playing too safe. Like, why are you still the XO here? You need to be a captain by now. Get out of that chair so I can be in it,
Well, that was, you should have gone on. But I think their initial argument had flared up over she wanted to make a wild play and he was trying to pump the brakes on it. So I think even by that point of best of both worlds, Riker had already seen significant character changes from early season Rikers. And I guess they kind of reinforced that too with Thomas Riker, that William Riker saw traits in Thomas Riker that he had toned down a while ago. So
that he had outgrown, and it made sense that he'd outgrown them.
Yeah, I guess seeing Riker at this stage in his career and his personal behavior, him being overly cautious, especially in this situation, does track well.
And that, like, Picard is trying to tell him, like, no, we've done this our whole lives. Yeah, it's risky, but you're going to have to create some sort of tactical advantage for yourself and blow this ship up. That's the way we get out of this. And of course, we get a whole episode of them trying to escape and using the portal gun and trying to slowly wear them down. When they get to the
portal gun, that's a big deal, right? Because they finally repair engines to the point where they can go to warp. They got to get out. Also, they're getting hit with these energy pulses. There's something in the nebula. There's a countdown timer running. They cannot be in here forever. And they go to make a run for it. And right as they are about to get out, the same portal device that was used to destroy the recruitment outpost on Matalas or whatever, off they go to try and hit the trajectory to punch it. And they go through this portal and they come out right in front of the Shrike. And they're like, what the fuck was that? Let's try to do this again. And they start getting juggled. And they realize we are not going to be able to outrun them. We're going to go back into the nebula. And an odd thing is happening, because this nebula is fucking up all the sensors, as nebulas are designed from the ground up to do. Yet somehow they're being tracked effectively through the nebula. And that's something Shaw will call attention to from the operating table, where I loved watching Bev get back into
being
action.
A doctor. Yeah. It was, and then she said, like, I'm still a doctor. I still do medical stuff. Like, I've not lost my touch on my art. I haven't been inactive for 20 years. And, like, has to, like, push back against the Trill CMO to say, like, no, I can do this. And it's actually, like, it makes so much, it's like Shaw is, like, in shock and trauma. They're trying to treat him. And he's, like, looks at Jack and just, like, gets out, like, how are they tracking us? Like, I'm giving you the directive. Go figure that out while I, like, lay here near death, please.
I also enjoy the rest of the crew, like, giving Jack the side eye, like, we are all going to fucking die here.
And it's your fault.
Your criminal ass. Like, fuck you, dude. There's some connections between Riker and Jack, too. Like, the interplay. This Jack guy is not a bad actor.
No, yeah, he's good.
And, he does well in the role. It's just, again, he doesn't look anywhere near the age
he's just all over the place in terms of like the actions he takes, to the point where it gets a little weird. But he's like, okay, if I've got to figure out why they're tracing us, I guess I'll go find Seven of Nine, who's not doing anything right now, and go to her and say, you know, you used to be a space pirate ish type of person. I used to know space pirates. There are a million ways for ships to be tracked. That it's, you know, subtle, hard for the ship to know how it's even happening. What would you pick if you were trying to track this ship? And through that logic, they figure out, oh, we need to go prevent this leak of this weird gas from occurring. They do a standard one punch knockout of the security guard, and off on that adventure they go.
Meanwhile, Planet Raffi, they're trying to track down some middleman that they had gotten as the lead off of
we already covered this, though. Like, this is the Changeling.
Well, I just wanted to point out that the Changeling guy, it's the Renfield guy from the new Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm like, oh, look at this guy, movie star over here slumming
and
it
he
for
looks
some
similar
Star Trek.
because he was all fucked up with his makeup.
Yeah. By the end, they figure out, all right, they're tracking us with this leak. We find out that there is, in fact, a shapeshifter on the Titan that is actively sabotaging efforts there. And that's going to be important because now this isn't squarely just Picard bringing problems into Shaw's life. Like, there's some deeper shit going on here. Titan ends up with a pretty solid chance to finally get the drop on the Shriek. Picard's, telling Riker, like, we got to do it, man. We got to go for the fucking kill. We can't run. You got to face these guys. Like, do it. Now's the time. They fly in. They hit him with the fucking photon torpedo spread. Portals. Photon torpedo goes in. Photon torpedo comes out behind Titan. Titan rocks itself with its own, hit them with their own photons. And then we reach one of my criticisms for all this, and it's just unnecessary levels of drama between main cast and old friends, and just stuff that you never ever saw in any of the TNG stuff. Just some very 2023, 2020 modern TV in here with just super high drama. Riker throws Picard off the bridge. There's a rift between them now.
I mean, they patch it up like almost immediately, though. And Riker admits he was wrong. Like, I actually think they do that, and then immediately it's, nah, I was just pissed because I fucked it all up. You were right the whole time. We should have used the fact, like, oh, Jack almost gets killed. We should point that out. Like, when the other Changeling shows up and tries to prevent the leak from being stopped, nearly kills Jack, and he goes down to sick bay, and he sees him be revived, and it's, it's definitely affected Picard in a particular emotional way. And that, in the context of that, finally, like, Riker decides to, like, fight, but it's too late, and he's lost his tactical advantage, and he just loses, and he gets pissed. And then immediately in the next episode, in episode 4, he goes to Picard and goes, you were right. Should have tried to find a way to get out of this by actually banging it out with her, instead I didn't, and we're going to get killed for it. And that's my fault. I apologize.
Titan is super fucked. All the systems are offline. They don't have anywhere near the power they need. They got to start turning systems off. Titan is actively descending deeper into the center mass of this nebula. There's some sort of gravity well present. There is some big bad down there that they cannot hang around for. Starfleet protocol dictates that they should just chill out and wait for rescue, which will never happen because nobody knows they're there and they're outside of Federation space. And shit is real bad. So the crew basically knows that they're going to die. They're dead in the water. Picard starts trying to reconnect with Jack, who he has been basically had a gun put to his head. Like, your son just almost died. You do care about him. Now's a great time to patch this up. Picard goes down to the holodeck, recreates 10 forward, Guinan's bar, invites him in.
A nice bit of continuity. That
huge continuity.
Yeah, I'm sure you noticed it as well as I did. The reason why the holodeck is working is it has a separate power source.
Well, the fucking explanation of why the holodeck has a separate power source, like, what a dark, depressing fucking thought that is. Like, we specifically make this So the power is incompatible with the rest of the ship. So when there's a no-win scenario and people are dead to rights and they're going to die alone in space, they can make a Polynesian resort and have titties and beer and die in the void of space somewhat happy.
A brilliant conceit to an existing piece of continuity. Like, this was not an accident. This was on purpose. This is a little emotional lifeboat for you to get into when you cannot escape the darkness of space.
It's morphine. You're terminal, and this is like hospice, space
And
hospice.
of course, everyone is availing themselves of this opportunity. You know, like random crew members are showing up, and eventually, a newly somewhat mended Shaw makes an appearance. That's when he lays down. You know, if he's gonna die, he's gonna not die not having confronted the man he hates the most in the universe, which is Jean-Luc Picard, and we find out why. Shaw is a survivor of Wolf 359. He tells a story, a harrowing story, of that he and his whole crew, everyone on his crew perished except the 10 people who got picked to be in a lifeboat, including him. He's lived with survivor guilt for his whole adult life as a consequence of this, and just the lines of the whole show to a degree, when he says, "You know what your dad was doing on that day? He was on the Borg cube, setting the world on fire." Like you know what they call him? They call him Locutus of Borg. The only Borg so deadly he has a goddamn name. Like, brilliant, just a brilliant way to describe like how awful Locutus was for Starfleet. Like,
And they touch on that in DS9, right?
they do, and unfortunately, they don't do it very much. It's really just in the premiere. In the premiere, Sisko survives Wolf 359 as well, and he doesn't like Picard because of it. And then at the end of it, like, that's the only time they ever meet in the whole show, right? And this is over. This is like 4 episodes. It's been building this. Like, why is this guy so aggro against Picard? Well, killed all of his friends, and he's been living with the guilt that he survived it for his entire life. And this dude is here. He's his worst enemy. The person that's caused him the most pain is present before him, and they're all gonna die. So he's gonna go tell that motherfucker exactly how he feels about him before the chance is lost.
And it's fair too. Nobody would be in that situation again if it wasn't for Picard coming along. So like,
Yeah,
this is the second time he's been fucked by this guy. The bad guy, whatever the evil captain is,
Vatic.
intimates that she's got some pretty sensitive Federation information that she's aware of. She's got Shaw's psych profile. She even kind of fingers the fact something's wrong with this guy. So yeah, this is a really good scene. It takes all the disdain you would have for Shaw as a viewer and wipes it, because now you see, okay, this is what's up with this dude.
Yeah, he doesn't like 7 of 9 because she's bored.
Which, again, then why would he pick her for the fucking... That's the one thing that doesn't add up. And he'll say, I underestimated this, but like, if you really don't like Borg, why would you make Borg your fucking XO?
Because you're angry and you want to oppress them.
It's not even an elephant in the room. Like, I don't know at what point I stopped and really paid attention. There's profanity.
Yeah, it's the F-bomb that he shares when he's talking about Jack Crusher with his son.
Yeah, but like, whereas season 1 is the sheer fucking hubris, like, it stood out so bad. It doesn't feel non-24th century. It works. It flows. It's woven into the dialogue as supplemental. It is not the focus of the dialogue. And they put a fair amount of profanity into these episodes, and you don't notice. It works.
I feel like the F-bombs are out of place because that's crass language, but like Shaw calling himself a dipshit from Chicago makes a ton of sense. Like, that works for me really well. But like, Jean-Luc Picard should not be using potty language.
When did he say?
He says 10 fucking hours.
No, I like that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. There's a bunch of conversations about, what's the worst thing you've ever been in, and it's like, how you ask a man that? Like, he had how many seasons or episodes were there? 26 times 7 plus however many movies. Like, every day of work was the worst fucking day of work. I got stuck in an elevator with kids. What's the worst thing that ever happened? Well, I mean, I was held a prisoner of war for like fucking 2 months and tortured ad nauseum.
And also, I was in a
Naked.
turbo lift with kids, and I had to convince them to save themselves.
Yeah. I was kidnapped by the fucking Borg, and
That's about to come up, by the way. Like,
I really liked Picard's reaction to the anger that Shaw had for him.
yeah.
That, like, yeah, I'm not over that either. We were all on the same page that was the absolute worst, and I am a bad person, whether I was complicit in that or not.
This is also the episode that is framed by the Picard telling stories to the Starfleet youngsters, which, like, you want to talk about the opposite of him being emasculated. This is, oh, hero Jean-Luc Picard, will you please tell us stories of how fucking awesome you are,
I know
including,
you
like,
want to eat your sirloin steak, but please, man, we're here, and like, that's cool framing too, because he's telling all these stories and this hero worship. And as we'll later find out, there's been this Beverly will say, listen, I told Jack once he was old enough where to find you, and I wanted him to go out and find you, and he did not seek you out. Like, I'm not going to put a gun to his head to make him do it. We'll find out later by the end that his son was actually there for that little bit of hero worship. Said, hey, you ever wish you had family? And Picard makes a comment like, Starfleet's always been the family that I, took care of my family needs. And like, Jack was going to reach out to him and kind of got rebuffed. And I think that's some real good character building for Jack, why there's this Starfleet resentment and this
yeah.
problem with authority and this other stuff. So we're just master strokes there on that character. The pulses from the nebula getting worse and worse. I absolutely love that it's Beverly Crusher that notices, and that, I don't think Beverly really got the recognition for the scientist she was.
Particularly because this is a biological
Yeah.
circumstance, right? Like, it makes sense that it was her.
As good as it felt watching Riker get up there and belt some mortars out and Picard put his foot down, it felt good for Bev to be like, I'm fucking great at my job. By the way, I worked on the flagship and I know they're space babies.
And her fucking scene in explaining, like, we didn't go into it, but like, her justification to Picard for why you had a son, like why I decided that this was not something to involve you in, was awesome. Because it's like it's really hard to build a scene where a character that's made a choice that seems so obviously objectionable and victimizing of another can be justified. Like, hard to see a world where Beverly Crusher could be right for not telling Jean-Luc Picard that she had a son with him. Yet, by the end of that conversation, you totally see her point. Like, hey, I was going to tell you, and then, like, Romulans tried to kill you. And then I was going to tell you, and then you got kidnapped for 5 days. And then I was going to tell you, and then they tried to bomb you. And that's when I decided I was never going to be able to fucking tell you. And
your life is a TV show. It is ridiculous.
and,
Twice a pay period, you are in periling hells, and you still choose to be there. I'm not going to create a situation where you have to choose this life you love so much you're willing to endure being terrorized every 48 hours, or going off and being a father.
And his Picard's, because he plays the scene great too, right? He says, how could I have ever known what my answer would have been? Because you never gave me the opportunity to even know, right? Like, you don't know. I don't know. I have no idea if 20 years ago you came to me and said, Jean-Luc, I'm pregnant. You're going to have a child. I don't think this works if you don't quit. That I might not quit and decide to do that. I never got a chance to know what my answer would have been.
The only line that's missing there would have been her saying, and I couldn't be the one to take you off the chessboard. Too many times I've seen you were the only person that is able to do what you're doing, and the universe needs you.
The Titan situation continues to develop as Seven talks to Shaw and Riker. First to Riker to say, we got a fucking changeling problem. There's one on board somewhere. It used to be the transporter chief. I found his body half decayed, lawn suitor style, in a closet. So we got to fucking find him. And Riker's like, hey, okay, I'm putting you on the mission. I'm reinstating you, but, sniff this thing out. And she eventually goes to Shaw to say, like, listen, I need to talk to someone who knows what the fuck is going on to be able to figure this out. And you get a little bit of interplay between the two of them, where ultimately Shaw's explaining what changelings are to her and says, like, eventually they have to, like, get into a bucket to, like,
Could have
reach.
skipped the weed joke.
Oh, the find your pot. You mean cannabis?
I love
it was
that
fine.
Shaw at first is like, fuck you, get out of here. I don't care. We're very clearly all going to die. And I don't give a shit about what you have to say. And then she, like, drops enough shit on him. He's like, fuck.
I am captain, I guess. Like, I should get
fucking
on it.
Changelings on my ship.
I don't like this.
Okay, you can stay. We can talk for a couple minutes.
So she goes on the hunt for this thing to find his bucket and all this other stuff. So that's happening in the background. And after Crusher comes to Picard and Jack with, like, no, there's a way around this, and they go to Riker to say, listen, I know you think we're fucked. I know you think we're just going down, but we've figured out this whole electrical pulses, waves. We can charge the warp core. We can basically overcharge the batteries on the ship by opening up our nacelle covers and, like, and riding the wave surfer style to get the fuck out of here and beat this thing. And Riker is reinvigorated by this hope. He's been overwhelmed by his nihilism, and he seizes on this chance.
He says space babies, and they're like, space babies? And she's like, we've seen stuff like this before where there's just big events out in space. Farpoint. And I'm like, great time to fucking tap that ridiculous episode. Good. There's the thing going. We figured it out. We can use environmental hazards to our advantage, blah, blah, blah. Riker's dragging his feet. And I got this crystallized a lot of stuff for me. And it was tapping into what is the core concept of this show.
Mm-hmm.
So Riker showing doubt, like, there's we might be able to survive for a little bit, then we'll die, or we can do what you want to do and we will for sure die. There's such a narrow opportunity to survive this. And I don't know if it's Beverly or if it's Picard that lays it out, but it's like, if there's anybody that can pull it off, it's us. We were a flagship crew. Let's do what we spent our entire lives learning to be great at. And it's pulling out a win where there should be no opportunity for it all.
It was Beverly who said that.
And it's like, that's what the show was, was 7 seasons of them at beating everything at all odds. Like, at some point they have to become self-aware. Like, we've cheated death so many fucking times. Like, we have become great at it.
Yeah.
And this is just another opportunity. We got to knock the rust off. We got to juice up the people around us because they're not ready to fucking do the zany kind of shit that we used to pull on a fucking weekly basis.
We are the best who ever did this. If anyone's going to make it as us, let's just fucking do it. And that's what gets to Riker. It's what works. Like, you know what? We are the fucking best who's ever done this. Let's go.
He gets the twinkle in his eye. And that's the right time to get the twinkle of, like, oh yeah, we're fucking nuts. Yeah. I mean, we don't have Data here to fucking do crazy math for us anymore. And LaForge or, Q in our back pocket. I guess he died season 2, but yeah, fuck it. Or let's go down trying.
They launch the plan. They first have to navigate a asteroid field, which Picard navigates with Jack's help in giving directions to Sidney LaForge about how to use the thrusters to, like, get him down. It's very reminiscent of Booby Trap,
And that's exactly what I was thinking too.
Yeah. And they navigate that. They are going to get into the wave. They dump all of their life support energy into the engine so they can make it work.
The critical point in all of this, though, as you kind of mentioned, was you need to open up the exterior casings of the to expose the engines. And because of the refit, It's not an automated process, so you need the one guy out there who is able to do it, and that's also the guy who hates you the most. That's going to be Shaw. So you're going to have to build that bridge and say, here's our zany fucking plan. We all just did a bunch of drugs. We just took our Federation antidepressants, so we believe we can do this now. But hey, you cynical guy, you also are on painkillers because you broke all your ribs and knocked your fucking teeth out. But I need you to go crawl into a fucking tight space and pop these covers so we can soak up the juices and go. Also, by the way, you're going to be super exposed, and what you're doing is really important. So you might have like a changeling assassin come visit you. So FYI.
Do love the, like, he just shows up and goes, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I'm going to need you. The dipshit from Chicago. I need you. It's just the way it is. And he's like, all right. Like, the way he just accepts, like, you're acknowledging what I said to you, right? You're acknowledging I told you you were a monstrous piece of shit. And you're saying, I'm still here because you're the man who can save the day. And he's like, give me 5 minutes. I'll see you down there. Like, I'm a Starfleet captain. I am not immune to the need to go do rad space shit. Let's go,
And also, too, I think there's a begrudging admission, that these guys are the best of the best. He wasn't happy to see him on the ship. He still gave Riker command. He could have put Hansen in there. He could have put the lieutenant commander, whoever, in there.
Yeah.
He knows these guys are the best of the best. And this is what he signed up for, is this kind of shit specifically. And it's happening, and he has to respect the fact that these guys are doing the thing that he's there to do.
So it goes down with 7 of 9 to do the covers. Like you said, a changeling assassin comes down that looks like Sidney LaForge. 7 sniffs it out by getting her, as foreshadowed, to give up to do something incorrect by calling her Commander Hansen instead of calling her Commander 7, and blasts her in the chest. Correct answer. You did not just kill Geordi LaForge's daughter. You kill a changeling. That's good. And sure enough, they get the things open and they start riding the wave, and everything's coming back online. Picard's like giving direction on navigation, like, do this, stay in it. All the crew members are figuring out, oh, this is what we got to do. You see them buy into what their leaders are telling them, and they perform.
When they get ready to do the gauntlet run here, and Picard surrenders the captain chair to Picard. I'm sorry, Riker surrenders the captain's chair to Picard because, this is his show at that point. Stewart brings back real Picard.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, I got a little emotional watching, like, him get up there and just start belting out orders to a degree that none of these captains in Picard seasons 1 or 3 have done to this point, where it's like, again, I play Artemis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of these other, like, bridge commanders, like, there's letting the crew do their thing, and then there's getting in there and be like, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. And that's fucking textbook Picard. Like, just getting in there and it's my show now. And despite what you might have heard in season 1, I am the fucking captain.
And I'm good at this.
Mm-hmm. I'm great at it. And everybody's just like, oh yeah. Oh, is this
ooh.
is this what being commanded feels like? Because I like this. Yes, Captain, my captain.
And in what can only be called the true redemptive moment of Captain Riker's brief command of the Titan, when the Shrike appears in front of them one more time, he's not fucking around. He's not being defensive. He's learned his lesson. And he goes, our tractor beam working? Yeah. Grab that rock and throw it at him. Get him.
So, yeah, they cut the thing. They fly over it. And they throw an asteroid into the Shrike. And Bev goes, Will, did you just throw an... Because she was knocked out the first time something got thrown. So this is all new to her.
Yeah.
Will, did you just throw an asteroid at that ship? You goddamn right I did. And I was like, fuck yes. Fuck yes.
It's just like, you know what?
Absurd.
Fuck these guys.
Absurd. And that was perfect.
It was.
That was fucking perfect. I love that. I love the disbelief on Beverly. Even Will doesn't believe it happened. It did. They don't circle back around and kill him because, they're good guys and the plot must go on or whatever. But
And they find out, of course, in a beautiful little TNG to the T moment, that this was, in fact, a giant space baby that bore. It was apparently a space birthing sack of a bunch of adorable space squids, and they're floating around now
like fireworks. Beautiful.
And they're looking at them, and of course, even Beverly just says it: "Seek out new life," right? And everyone's having that magical moment, and it's perfect. And then Will's like, "It's time for us to boldly get the fuck out of here." Like, Sydney, why don't we go? Like now. We've had a day. And they warp out. And that, the episode ends with a little bit of tease, of course, that, we haven't really started to dig into the plot. We've really just spent this time with the characters so that you can get a sense of some of the stakes, but not all of them.
The teleporter terrorist weapon is just a diversion from whatever the real danger is that was stolen from Daystrom.
And Jack is somehow involved.
He's having hallucinations. Yeah. There's a red door. There's vines growing.
And then that's the end of the episode. So, as you said, Peter, you said it is good, but not great. I think it becomes great in episode 4.
Episode 4 was great.
Yeah. It builds into that, right? Like,
coincidentally, episode 4 has the least amount of Raffi, so go figure.
Yeah. The Raffi level goes down after the first 4 episodes quite precipitously. Oh, she broke up with 7 of 9. I mean, it was just like set in an off moment and doesn't really matter in the whole season. But the Raffi goes down. Obviously, the plots converge. We get more and more of the crew together, as you would expect.
There is some stuff we didn't touch on with the changeling captain cutting off her hand to communicate with the whatever organization she's a part of. That they're the ones pressing, saying Jack Crusher is paramount. I don't care if you die. I don't care if your ship dies or your whole crew dies. You get this fucking done. And there's an acceptance to that. So there are very high stakes here on this Jack Crusher character.
Are you excited to watch the next 3 episodes?
Yeah, so here's what happened. We made the decision to watch this. I watched episode 1 with my wife, who was very cautious about getting back in bed with Picard again for very good reason. She bailed on Picard season 1 early. And then my kids have been monsters and not going to bed properly, so getting them just to lay down and give us TV time's rough. We were supposed to watch an episode the next day. I think I watched that first one Monday, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
She fell asleep trying to get them to lay down, and I was like, well, I need to this isn't leisure watching. Like, I have to watch this. This is podcast business. And then I watched episode 2, 3, and 4, and I went to bed at like 2:00 in the morning. So I'm fucking ready for more of these, and it's been rough not watching any. I mean, again, 4 is a good place to stop, but I'm certainly looking forward to getting deeper in here. It's not revolutionary. It's not the greatest thing ever. I just got off of Severance, which was super good. So like I'm not super starved for great stuff, but they're hitting the fucking notes. They're using the nostalgia correctly. They're bringing out enough fucking Easter eggs that it's like, again, the Rachel Garrett thing was a fucking deep cut. I love that. Like, they're doing it right. It's not the focus. It's not a crutch they're leaning on. But it's showing me there's some high competency. And just real quick, going through these, episode 1 was written by Next Generation. That was Terry Matalas, directed by Doug Aronofsky, who's just a bunch of Discovery credits. And then Disengage was Chris Monfreet and Sean Treda by Douglas Aronofsky. Interesting to me that Matalas isn't the writing credit on all of these, for as well put together as these all were. And then you get into episode 3 and 4, Jane Maggs, Cindy Apple, directed by Frakes.
Yep. Got to have him do at least one.
Well, they had him do two because the fourth one was Terry Matalas and Sean Tritt and Frakes again there. So good to see Frakes being able to come in strong on these.
And
There's
also like perform and direct. A lot of the episodes he directed of TNG, he would put himself out.
yes,
And in this, like he's the focus really of episodes 3 and 4. I want to say like his
he's
captaincy of the
prominent.
Titan. Yeah. And you know, he has probably, you know, he has a lot of big dramatic moments. It's got to be hard because he said, you know, he was hesitant to do it because he had just never not acted for the last decade. Like he wasn't in front of the camera, he was behind the camera. And
She had some warm ups there, like for however silly and brief it was doing the voiceover work for Lower Decks. Like I think there's enough there to like maybe I do miss this a little bit, and you know
oh,
there
you
was a
could
little bit in
tell he
Picard.
wouldn't be trying as hard as he was if he didn't miss it, you know. You
No,
could,
and then there is a good scene there where he does call Deanna because he was going to write her like a "I'm dead and here's my post mortem" thing, which she ultimately doesn't, and calls her when he gets out. And it's a good Star Trek moment too. And this is something they always kind of do when there's a death, is that like basically it's, is there a god, right? We're
Mhm.
out here going to the far edges of the galaxy. Is there an afterlife? This thing I care the most about, my dead child, is there anything out there for them, or is this just a shallow existence that's over as easily as it appears? And you know, he's in this real dark place, and then getting the band back together, cheating death, and then getting to see baby squid fireworks, like rekindling his passion for life and his hope and his curiosity and all of his Starfleet feelings of, you know, exploring the unknown and willing to believe in this and that. Like Troy does a nice job selling the change she's seeing
Mhm.
and uh, putting him over.
Yeah, it kind of completes his emotional arc, you know, where
Yes.
he's come to realize that the galaxy and existence is grander than, you know, his nihilism, and that he's found life and he's embracing, you know, this newfound emergence from his depression. It's
Yes.
just it's a nice end to the emotional arc that he was on for the first 4 episodes. And I'm glad you're excited, man. Like it gets even better than it's been. And so if you thought this was good and you thought episode 4 was great, I'm excited to get your take as we mow through the rest of this. So 2.5 hours later,
Yeah.
we're tapping out. We hope you guys enjoyed this. God, you better. I'm gonna be editing this, and I'm gonna like my hair is gonna turn white. But when we
Hmm.
get there, we're gonna get there. And I want to put a timetable on exactly when we're gonna finish this. I assume we're gonna move at pace depending on schedules. But you can count on us getting through this at a with considerable effort out to everybody, because frankly I've enjoyed talking about it and I'm excited to talk more about
These
it.
are the conversations I wanted to have.
About Picard, yeah.
This is why I got excited. This is why we stopped doing Voyager and went all in on Picard, because this is the excitement and the enjoyment that we should have been able to enjoy instead of that fucking train wreck that was just mean spirited humor. You know, this is genuine fandom. This is respect to the source material and the fans. This is what we signed up for, and I'm happy that we're finally getting a fucking taste of it.
Agreed, sir. All right, everybody, thanks for enjoying this episode, and we'll see you next time.